Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
Canada. For many applicants around the world, Canada has become a really attractive place to get their MBA over the past decade. In comparison to its neighbor to the south, my home country, the US, it just seems like things are a bit more stable, the visa situation, the political situation, and there's a lot of great post-MBA job opportunities in Canada and a lot of great schools there as well. So I was really excited to get Imran Kanga on the show this week. Imran is the Director of Recruitment and Admissions for the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto, which is Canada's top-ranked university, Canada's top-ranked business school, Canada's top-ranked MBA. And we dive deep into, the unique aspects of this program. In many ways, it resembles a traditional 2-year program with the internship. But I think you'll get a really good understanding of just the sheer amount of opportunities there are at a program like Rotman and a clear idea of what they're looking for in each part of the application. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Imran. And if you need help figuring out which schools fit you best, which would be the best investment for you, which would make the most sense for you, do check out touchmba.com. That's how we're trying to make a difference in this space, is trying to help you shortlist best fit schools. All that is for free at touchmba.com. So it's my pleasure to welcome Imran Kanga, who is the Director of Recruitment and Admissions at the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. Imran, good to see you again, and welcome back to the Touch MBA podcast.
Thank you for having me, Darren. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. So you know what my first question is going to be. We ask it every podcast. What makes the Rotman MBA unique?
Thank you for that question, Darren. So, I think the Rotman MBA program is a 2-year intensive MBA full-time program. But what makes us unique is not really the program structure. U of T, University of Toronto, as well as Rotman, is globally recognized as a research-intensive institution. Both the business school and the university are focused on, some groundbreaking research and working on some of business and society's most complex challenges and innovations. So that's really, I would say, what makes us a unique proposition for students, is because students really become part of this process through working with our numerous labs and research centers. To name a few, we have our Creative Destruction Lab, which was started in 2012, and today has grown to becoming one of the largest tech startup incubators focused on disruptive technology anywhere in the world. Our self-development lab, for example, is another great example of a lab that gives students quantifiable feedback on how they portray to others, how others perceive their communication skills. So there are some very unique learning opportunities available to students. And these would fall sort of outside of the classroom, right? So I would say where Rotman is truly unique is in our experiential learning opportunities. And we have an entire office dedicated to this. So our Office of Student Engagement is responsible for curating around 1,000 experiential learning opportunities for our students over their 2-year period.
Over 1,000?
Yes.
That's amazing. So I felt, when preparing for this podcast, that Rotman to me seems like it has that traditional 2-year structure, right? But the class size is a bit bigger, I'd say, than most programs. But there's also, like you said, so many experiential learning opportunities, so many, like 15 or 16 different majors and areas of interest. So it seems like there's just a lot of different ways students can plug into what interests them most. And so would this be the quote unquote spike factor for you guys?
No, I don't. We can talk about spike factor, and I will address it later. But I think what we want to give students is really an opportunity to choose your own adventure, right? Like everyone is different, everyone is unique in their career aspirations and their objectives and what they want to gain from the MBA program. So we want to give students all of the tools and resources and support that they require to get from point A to B, which is where they are now, to where they want to be 2 years and even 5 years from now, right? So while yes, there are 1,000 experiential learning opportunities available to students, it's not to say that you need to take advantage of all of them. You can't take advantage of all of them. So students have to pick and choose and prioritize what's important to them based on what they're doing the MBA program for, right? And so it's through that process is you really do choose your own adventure.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, academically, where does Rotman really stand out? Like, what is its reputation within Canada, within Toronto?
Great question. So Darren, as I said, U of T as well as Rotman are research intensive institutions. And that's really what we're known for. And I think our focus on academic research and innovation is really what attracts some of the world's leading faculty and thought leaders in different areas to the university, where they're able to come here and receive the support that they need to carry out their own research and publish in journals and so on and so forth. And I think this, because U of T and Rotman are attracting some of these top global thinkers and faculty, and this is in turn what attracts some of the top students from across the world. So academically, we are an academically intense institution. The MBA program is probably one of the most academically rigorous programs out there. And in terms of reputation, the MBA program is ranked number 1 in Canada by the Financial Times. The University of Toronto is ranked number 6 outside of the US by Times Higher Education, as well as 18th overall worldwide. So we are, globally recognized as a top 20 university across the globe. Yeah.
And yeah, that's part of the reason why I was really excited to get you on the show as well, Imran. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess, are there any other parts of the program that you think, you just kind of wish more candidates knew about, right? That they can't really, see on your website?
Well, there's a lot of information available on the website, but
which is great.
I think, I would really love for prospective applicants or students to learn more about, some of our more unique program offerings, like business design, for example. Business design is now an institute at Rotman and is really sort of brainchild of one of our faculty members, Angèle Beausoleil, who took a cue from the Stanford Design School, D School at Stanford, where it's more focused on the technical aspects of design. And she kind of married that with business strategy and customer empathy to give birth to a completely new way of looking at business design. So that's one of our very unique areas of interest, if you will, that's available to students. And it's one of the main reasons why a lot of students choose to come to Rotman. Another one, as I said, is our creative destruction lab. So for students who are interested in learning more about entrepreneurship, maybe they have an idea of starting their own business, the opportunity to work with the incubator or with one of the tech startups that are, part of the Creative Destruction Lab program is another truly unique opportunity. Rotman, because of, largely due to our location, has always been known as the finance school or the consulting school. So I'd love for students to move away from that perception, because there's so many more opportunities, and there's so many other pathways and learning opportunities available to students. So yeah, so if I could, there's a lot to go through, but I just mentioned a few that students should definitely look into.
Yeah, and one thing I really appreciated about your website is you provide a lot of just recorded material that applicants can dive into. So if you want to sample a class, right, in under business design or accounting or whatever it is that you're interested in, yeah, do check that out, and I'll be sure to link to that in the show notes.
Thank you.
I actually, my impression of Rotman has always been like design thinking, business design, because I think your former dean, I believe, was a big proponent of that as well.
Absolutely.
But, Imran, why do you think now of all times is a good time to get your MBA in Toronto and in Canada?
I mean, if you look at Canada and Toronto specifically, one thing that stands out is, of course, the return on investment, right? Which is for all students looking to pursue an MBA is a very important consideration. You're investing a lot of money and time time away from work into getting this degree. So a very important consideration is return on investment. And that's something that, studying in Toronto would give you. The cost of living in Toronto, compared to other major metropolitan cities like New York, for example, is a lot lower, but the standard of living is a lot higher. So that's one very attractive metric. Toronto has been ranked as one of the world's most livable cities by The Economist. It ranks third in the Cities of Opportunity Index. So a great place for young professionals looking to live and to work and build a career long term. As an international student, you have the opportunity to not only study, but then to continue living and working in Canada with the work permit and pathway to permanent residency that is available to graduates of master's programs in Canada. So that's another attractive proposition for students who are looking to build a long-term career in North America. And it goes back to that point about ROI. You want to make sure that you're able to recover the investment that you're making in your education. So from strictly sort of financial perspective, that's one feature or one selling point about Toronto. But I think Toronto today is one of the most multicultural and diverse cities in the world. Over half of Toronto's population was actually born outside of Canada. So it is a city and a country of immigrants. It is truly like a cultural melting pot where students from all over the world are exposed to so many different cultures and perspectives by interacting with people from all over the world. So you truly get a global experience by living, studying, and working in the city.
Yeah, and on that work visa note, I'm wondering if the length of your program affects the length of the work visa, or is it all the same?
No, that's a great question. So if you do a 2-year MBA program, you are eligible to get a work permit of up to 3 years. If you do, a 1-year program, for example, you get a work permit for up to 1 year. So the length of your program does, it does matter from a work permit perspective, for sure.
I mean, that's a huge advantage and something to consider, I'm sure, for our audience. But
I mean, there's many other benefits to doing a 2-year program, like the internship, right? For example, and that's, I think, thank you for bringing that up, because that is another very unique feature of the Rotman MBA program, is that we have our internship that's built into the MBA curriculum. So all students in the program have to complete an internship as part of the program. I mean, they have to do it in order to graduate. So our internship placement rate is 100% because all students have to complete it, and they get a credit for it. That's part of the program. So.
And how long do those internships have to last, or how does
it's
that?
One semester.
One semester.
Yeah, so It's a 4-month internship.
Yeah.
It happens typically over the summer, but it is called a flexible internship program. So students have the flexibility to take, to do the internship at any at any point in their second year. So they can do it in the summer, they can do it in the fall term, or in the winter term. Most students, complete the internship in the summer. That's just because that's when most of the companies have, internship opportunities available to students. But they do have the flexibility to complete it at any point in their second year.
Got it. And yeah, if someone has never been to Toronto like myself, can you sort of paint a picture of where the campus is relative to the city and the CBD, and how that would be?
Yeah, that's another, I would say, a major advantage for our students, because the Rotman, University of Toronto and Rotman specifically is located right in the heart of downtown Toronto. So, students who are at Rotman could walk to the, sort of CBD or financial district within about 10, 15 minutes. Which makes networking so much easier for students, and I see this all the time. Students planning coffee chat meetings, in between classes. It's so much more convenient, not only for the students, but also for the hiring managers or alumni or recruiters that they're meeting. It's very conveniently located for employers and recruiters to come on campus, as well as for students to go off campus and continue to grow and build their network while they're in the program.
Wow. So the housing is also within the city, residential. Most international students are staying close to that.
Yeah. So most of our students live in and around campus. There's plenty of options available depending on if you're a single student or if you're coming with family. There's options available for both. And we have on-campus housing that's available to graduate students as well. So,
wow.
Yeah. So we do, we do realize that living in the downtown core could be expensive, but the university does subsidize housing for students that choose to stay on campus. Yeah.
Got it. And last question about the program is,
sure.
I'm just wondering how much interaction the Rotman School of Management students can have with the wider University of Toronto. I mean, you mentioned these different centers, but can they take classes in different faculties, and how? Yeah, I'm just wondering how they sort of integrate with the rest of the school.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for an MBA student, they are able to take up to 2 or 3 electives at other faculties, and so the electives would be typically in their second year. So, and we see this all the time. Students could take like a business law course at the law school, which would count towards their MBA electives. But we also have, joint degree programs for students who are interested. Let's say, so we have our JD MBA program. We've recently launched an MD MBA program. So like medical doctor MBA degree. We have a doctor of pharmacy MBA program. We also have the Master of Global Affairs, which is part of the Monk School at the University of Toronto. So MGA MBA program. So there's, there is a lot of interaction within the University of Toronto environment. But for an MBA student that's just looking to take 1 or 2 electives at another faculty, maybe there's a course that's, really interesting to them, as long as it's at a master's level and it kind of fits into their career plan, they can certainly take a few electives at other faculties.
That's great. Let's switch our attention to admissions now. And the first question will be, I'll leave it open-ended. What are the fit qualities you're looking for, as you assemble this group of global students?
Yeah, so that's a really loaded question, Darren, because there is, the primary consideration for us is fit. Do they really fit into the Rotman community? And so then the question becomes, how do you define fit? And really, there's key things that we look for in our applicants or in the application. We've been able to sort of break it down into 4 main categories or buckets. The first is academic ability, or what we call intellectual horsepower. As I said earlier, our program is very academically intense and rigorous. So the students that we do admit into our program have to have proven themselves academically, either at the undergraduate level or master's level, or with one of the entrance test scores, or all of the above, hopefully. The second is leadership and impact. So, work experience is a requirement to be admitted into the program, but, more than the number of years of work experience, what we're really looking for is the applicant has had any kind of leadership experience, and maybe not in position, but any leadership initiatives that they would have taken, or how their career has progressed from the time they started working up until the point that they've applied. So it's more about the impact or the value add that they've had at their company or within their team or unit prior to joining the program. The third is communication and presence. I mean, communication is so important both in the classroom as well as out of the classroom and in the workplace. So having that sort of interpersonal communication skills, strong presence is very important. That's also an important consideration in our application. And then the last one is sort of, any additional interests, extracurricular activities, and what we call spike factor, right? So that's really what makes applicants truly unique and diverse and sort of jump off the page is really our spike factor. And that's our application essay, is what is your spike factor? Describe your spike factor. So it's a very open-ended essay, and it's meant to be sort of an exercise in self-reflection. I hope applicants have more fun with it than it's meant to be. It's not meant to be a scary exercise at all. But really what we're asking candidates to identify is what makes them unique, what truly differentiates them from other applicants, what motivates them. If we want to learn a little bit more about, who they are as an individual. So if they have any diverse lived experiences, any varied interests, hobbies, any meaningful community involvement that they've had, anything they've done in their personal or professional lives that make them stand out, anything they've done to demonstrate grit, determination, perseverance. These are all values that we place a lot of emphasis on and that we like to see in our students. So that's really, how I would define the last element of our application, which is spike factor.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely caught my eye that you guys also include or encourage applicants to include 1 to 3 of your spikiest pictures.
Yeah, I mean,
along with that essay,
it makes it a lot more fun for us.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's optional, but
Oh, it is optional. Okay.
Yes, it is optional. Yeah.
And so I think you answered one of my questions, but I just want to confirm it, because you're saying that, what are your spike factors that are aligned with the Rotman values? And are the Rotman values to you passion, grit, resilience, innovation, drive, ambition?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I just
those are available on our website as well. So
exactly,
secret sauce there, but
I just wanted to, highlight that.
Absolutely. Yes.
And
those are.
Yeah. And I'm curious about the strong presence criteria, right? Like what does that mean to you, strong presence?
It's just, strong communication skills. The best example I could give you is our assessment on the video assessments that are a part of the application.
About that. Yep.
Yeah. So that's where we would assess presence. Presence of mind really is you're given a question, you're given, about 30, 45 seconds to think about an answer. And then you have to answer the question in a clear, concise way, get your thoughts across and your ideas across without having prepped for it, or without having notes or without reading anything. So I think that's really presence of mind, presence to be able to think off the cuff. That's what I would define presence as.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad you pointed this towards the video interview and what you're looking for there. Cause I was just thinking, yeah, strong presence can be so different, right? From people. You can have someone who's quiet and doesn't say as much, but has a really strong presence, right? Or maybe someone who's just talking too much or is almost too articulate in a way can make people feel, I don't know. It's just
Absolutely. And
right.
that's not going to make or break your application, but at least it gives us a little better understanding of your communication skills and where you might want to work on some parts of your communication. And that's what our self-development lab is all about. So that's why all students have access to self-development lab modules in the first year of the program. Yeah.
Got it. So yeah, that's crystal clear, what you mean by strong presence, and you're looking for it in those timed videos, ability to think on your feet. And I also want to talk about your timed writing component.
Sure.
Give us some details. Like, how does this work?
So, communication is both oral and written, right? So we want to test for both. So the essay, applicants have a lot of opportunity to, work on their essay, save it, go back to it, get it proofed by colleagues, friends. But the timed essay component is, again, it's organic, right? You're meant to think on the fly and communicate in a short, concise way, answering the question. So it's sort of a different format of the video, the sort of oral video component.
Okay, so
questions are not sort of, we're not asking students to solve business cases. They're very straightforward kind of questions.
Can you give an example just so one that you aren't going to use again?
Okay. So for an example of the video question would be, if every week had an extra day, how would you spend that day? Or
okay. Yeah.
So there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's just, we want to know your thoughts, and are you able to communicate your thoughts clearly and concisely? That's pretty much it. And so the written one would be, okay, you just returned home from a Rotman networking event. You met with the hiring manager of, XYZ company. You'd love to keep in touch with them, write them a thank you note.
Yeah. That's great. I just personally, I find this really interesting because I do kind of see, not just, employment interview process, but also the MBA hiring process, quote unquote, to maybe shift more towards these sorts of exercises. And how long have you guys been doing the timed interview and essay?
A few years now.
Now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been at least maybe 6 or 7 years, at least. Yeah.
And do you think it's really helped you kind of, get a more data rich sort of view of the applicants?
For sure. For applicants that don't have for whom English is a second language, of course they have to do the TOEFL and the IELTS as part of their application. But I think this just gives us a different dimension. The TOEFL scores are just scores, and this kind of gives us a little more detailed about their communication. So we were able to really dig deeper into what areas of their communication they're the strongest at, what are their weak points. Again, it's not going to make or break an application. It just maybe gives us an indication of where their communication level is at, and maybe identify a couple of resources that might help them in the program.
Absolutely. And your interview, who conducts your interviews, and are they? Yeah, can you give us kind of a shape of what an interview would be?
Sure. So, the admissions team comprises of 5 assistant directors that each manage a regional portfolio. So we would have, assistant director that's responsible for, let's say, Southeast Asia, which would include, Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia. So typically because that assistant director would be the one who would travel to Vietnam and meet with prospective students. We like to have that, the same kind of touch point so that it's a seamless experience for candidates who are applying. So if they met with an assistant director at a recruitment event or for a coffee chat, in country or virtually, they would be in touch with that same assistant director throughout the application and the admissions process. So we like to have that sort of touch point available to all applicants. So it would typically be with an assistant director that would conduct the interview.
That's great. And is it, are there like case study questions in there, behavioral interview questions, or is it more kind of getting to know the applicant more, or from their paper application?
It's a mix.
Okay.
It's not like we don't ask them. We don't ask applicants any sort of business case questions. It's more behavioral. It's core competency. And a little bit more on their work experience that we drill down a bit on, and certainly ask them about their goals, what they expect from the program. But it's also a great opportunity for applicants to ask us questions and interview us, right? So we look for that as well. How prepared are applicants coming to the interview, and are they asking the right types of questions? So that's also very telling, as part of the admissions interview.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And just, is there anything, in the interview process or otherwise that you just kind of wish could help facilitate the selection process for you guys, right? That could help both the applicant stand out more and for you guys to better assess, right? Like what this applicant could really bring to Rotman. Basically, I'm asking you for, any tips there. Yeah.
Sure. I think the best tip I can give an applicant is to really just engage with us early. Start the process early. If you have identified Rotman as a school that you are looking to apply to, engage with us early. Get in touch with us. We have so many resources available for applicants, whether it's connecting with an assistant director for like a profile assessment, or connecting with a current student who could talk a little bit more about their experience in the program. So we like to see applicants that are engaged with us through the process. So engage with us early and apply early. That's a very important factor, often in getting admitted to the program, and certainly for scholarship consideration, is the earlier you apply, the better. So plan ahead and start the process early would be my biggest recommendation. I mean, there's, you have to look at the holes and the gaps in your application. I just identified, the 4 areas that we consider. So look at, putting your best foot forward, obviously, but, consider where your gaps are and how you could use the time available to you now to help fill those gaps as much as possible. I mean, there's certain things you can't control now, like GPA, for example, but there's many other areas in the application available to you to shine and put your best foot forward. So yeah, it's just, if you start early and plan ahead, you have time to really shine in the application process.
Got it. And so that assessment that you guys give, I mean, can you just briefly share like what that would mean? Like if I, for example, wanted an assessment from you guys and I got in touch early, what if I haven't taken my GMAT yet?
Of course, like the more information you could provide us, the better. So certain, if you have your transcripts would be available to you, your resume, that would be a good starting point to have an initial conversation. But certainly, the more, like I said, the more information you can provide us, the better. So doesn't hurt to reach out. And then once you do take the GMAT, write to us again and say, hey, this is, I got this GMAT. Should I apply? Should I do it again? Like, we're happy to give you that feedback.
Wow. I didn't expect that. I mean, for a program of your size, I mean, I strongly encourage, listeners to take advantage of that. I have to ask you about the GMAT. I forgot about it, but you brought it up. Toronto is a rigorous, as you said, academically rigorous place. So what are you looking for there? Are you looking, for minimums in terms of quant, verbal, overall?
No, so we take the GMAT and the GRE. Both are accepted, and we don't have a minimum sort of cutoff. This past year, the scores that we accepted, the range of scores we accepted was 560 to 760, and The average was just under 680. I believe it was 678 or 679. So that's just an average, just to give students a broad kind of picture. But by no means, do you need to have a 700 plus to be admitted? There were students who were admitted with 600. There were also students who were refused admission with over 700. So it really, you have to do your best in the GMAT. But and that's just one of the, that's just a small piece of the puzzle, right? There's many other factors that we do consider in our holistic assessment process. So,
okay, yeah, I think that's very clear. If we could talk about scholarships, maybe we can just hang on to what we were just talking about. Like, do the GMAT scores kind of affect scholarship opportunities? And just in general, what is your team's sort of philosophy in the way you approach awarding scholarships?
So we, we assess the application holistically. So we take everything into account, the GMAT, all of the sections of the GMAT. We like to see a well-balanced GMAT score, the GPA, the work experience, impact, communication, the spike factor essay, all of that plays a very important role. References as well. We look at all of those factors, and all of that would determine if a student is not only admitted, but also the scholarship that the student would receive or the applicant would receive.
Okay.
There isn't like a separate application for scholarships. Your MBA application is what we use to assess your candidacy for admission as well as for scholarship. And we are quite generous in the scholarships that we offer. This past year we offered $6.4 million in financial aid to a group of 280 students. So the average scholarship was about $22,000, and the range of scholarships we awarded was $5,000 to full scholarship. So, it is quite a broad range of awards. And we also, so we have entrance awards, which are what I was just describing, with, awards given at the time of admission. And then we also have in-program awards that students can receive. Is the only difference is the in-program awards, the students have to apply for those separately. The entrance awards are given at the time of admission without a separate application.
Wow. So, could you share the percentage of students that get scholarships?
I can't, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tried. But so is it safe to say then that as you evaluate the students holistically, you're looking to award, say, the top third? There's no real numbers there, but obviously you want the best applicants in your class, right? So kind of looking at applicants holistically and saying, okay, we think like this woman or this man could really bring, something special collectively and award them that way. So yeah, it's, Darren, like I said, it's a mix of everything. It could be, some a candidate's spike factor that is so, dominant in their application that suddenly their GMAT score doesn't really matter. Like we had this year, for example, one of our students applied and her spike factor essay was about, her working on an M&A deal, which was the largest in her country up to date. It was an oil and gas deal, and it was a very high profile deal. Because she was the central person that was responsible for that, she was on the cover of Forbes magazine. So having someone like that, someone, think about what they can contribute to a classroom discussion or a group project, or an Olympian, an Olympic athlete in our program. Like, would I really care if that person had a 650 GMAT? Not really. So yeah, so there's now, there could be someone who has a very hot, off the charts GMAT score, but they really haven't done much outside of just going to work and studying, that. So it's a balancing act, right? At the end of the day, like you want to check as many boxes as possible. Thank you for sharing those examples. Yeah, I think that really helps. So if we could pivot now towards careers, obviously this is my favorite part of the show. Yeah, what do you think makes Rotman MBA and the career services team special?
So our career services team they really are I want to look for the right word here, a full service operation. They're responsible for, so every student at Rotman has a dedicated career coach that is sort of their partner in their career journey and their go-to resource for everything from, hey, I have an interview coming up, I'd like to do mock interviews with you, to helping them perfect their resume and their cover letters, to someone they can just go and bounce ideas off of throughout the 2 years that they're in the program. The career services, or we say career center. So it's
career center.
Center team also is responsible, obviously, for bringing in companies from different industries to recruit at Rotman. So we have a team of industry advisors that have all had at least a decade of experience in the industry or industries portfolios that they manage. So they're very much in tune with all of the different trends in different industries, and they're bringing in companies on a regular basis to recruit Rotman students. The career services team also, or career center, also partners with student clubs. So like the Rotman Finance Association, for example, will work with the career center for their events, whether they're networking events or panel discussions. The team also is responsible for connecting current students with alumni that may or may not be, hiring at the time, but they facilitate those kind of industry, company, and alumni connections. They offer online as well as in-person career assessments for students. So yeah, they're basically I would say full service team and a full service operation. And I think their numbers speak for themselves. I mean, about 90% of our students are working within 3 to 6 months of graduation. So they really have a sort of hands-on approach, and to ensure that every single student is on track to meeting their career objectives right from the start of the program. And actually, it's companies are now coming. They used to come in the fall. So, the Career Center would start working with students in the fall, and that timeline has just moved forward and forward. And now, companies are reaching out to our students even before the program starts. So the consulting firms, Bain, BCG, Kearney, McKinsey, want to engage with our students even before they've started day one of the program. And so the Career Center is now, they've become part of our onboarding process, where they're reaching out to our students, our incoming students, throughout the summer, even before they step foot on campus.
Wow, that's so. Yeah, if I'm a student at Rotman, I would expect to see someone, let's say, not considering the industry, but as a just general kind of career advisor, I could see someone once a month or once every few months if I need to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, it's definitely once a month at least.
Okay. And are you seeing any trends in the student placement in terms of which industries and functions your students are heading towards?
For sure. Over the past few years, we've definitely seen a growth in a few industries or areas like tech, for example. Toronto has sort of had this influx of tech companies and tech jobs, tech companies setting up very large operations, north of the border. So, company like Netflix, for example, recently announced that Toronto was going to be their new Canadian headquarters. Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, these are sort of the tech giants that have grown and expanded their operations in Canada over the past few years. But there's also the it's called the Toronto Waterloo Corridor, which has now become one of the fastest growing tech startup sort of areas in the world. So there's a lot of, new tech startups that are coming up in the Toronto GTA, I would say, the Greater Toronto area. And so that, I would definitely see tech has been a very large industry that was quite niche, 10 years ago is now growing. And the other one is healthcare. I mean, healthcare has grown significantly over the past few years, independent of COVID. It has gained a lot of momentum, where the healthcare sector has now a need for managers and a need for strategic thinkers. So they are, a lot of hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, research centers are now reaching out to business schools to hire management talent. Not-for-profit sustainability has also been growing quite steadily. I mean, they're still smaller when compared to, the other sort of traditional pathways, but it is certainly growing.
So yeah, the top industries as per your last report were finance, consulting, tech,
Yes.
CPG, retail, and then we could, maybe healthcare growing as well. Interesting. Yeah, and I guess one last question on we already talked about the visas. So one last question on the career side is, what are the traits that can allow an international student not from Canada to give themselves the best chance of landing that job after 2 years with you guys?
I think, so you can think of the MBA as a springboard or a platform for international students to connect with employers. I mean, Rotman is obviously an established program. We have recruiters coming, on campus every year, sometimes twice a year, to recruit our students. So it's a platform that allows, whether you're international or domestic, it gives you 2 years of breathing room and space to develop yourself, upskill yourself, and also gain access to employment opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise have. There's a lot of, Canada being an immigrant-friendly country, we receive a lot of international talent coming in from all over the world. But this makes their transition into Canada a lot smoother, right? Because you're gaining access to top employers, but at the same time, you're also spending time to develop yourself. You gain some time to learn about the Canadian market, get some Canadian work experience through the internship, which other international immigrants would not have. So that's where the MBA can add some value for international students coming into the country. So did I answer that question?
Yes. No, absolutely. And, this has been fun talking to you, Imran. Thanks for letting me press you a bit on some of the admissions stuff as well. Right. But I just want to give you the floor if you have any last words to say to our listeners about Rotman.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'll say something that I said earlier on as well, that, there is a common misconception that Rotman, maybe because of the school's reputation and where we're located, is largely a finance and a consulting school. But I want prospective applicants, anyone looking at Rotman or researching Rotman, to know that there's so many other options available to students, no matter what your what career path you'd like to choose or pursue. There's a tremendous amount of support and resources available to ensure that you're able to meet your career objectives.
I think that's come through loud and clear. Thank you so much, Imran, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Darren.
Thanks for listening to the Touch MBA podcast. Don't be shy. We have a mailing list. Go to touchmba.com and get yourself signed up. And we'll keep you posted with the best tips and insider interviews on how to get into your #1 school. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Touch MBA. See you soon.